You are exhausted. Your eyes are heavy. Your body is pulling you down. But sleep will not come. You stare at the ceiling. You check your phone. You try every position. Nothing works. Tonight, like roughly 1 in 3 adults on any given night, you will lie awake wondering why your own brain refuses to do the one thing it desperately needs. Here is the strange part. For roughly 300,000 years, your ancestors did not have this problem. Not because their lives were easier. Not because they were less stressed. They faced predators, starvation, and weather that could kill them in a single night. They slept anyway. Deeply, efficiently, and in ways that would look absolutely insane to you today. This is the story of how ancient humans actually fell asleep. And some of what they did is so strange, so counterintuitive, that modern sleep researchers are now going back to study it. Let us start with the most basic question. Where did ancient humans sleep? Not in beds, not even in shelters, for most of prehistory. For hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors slept on the ground, on bare earth, sometimes in shallow digs, sometimes in piles of grass and leaves that they gathered deliberately and arranged each evening. But here is the first weird thing. They did not sleep alone. Anthropologist Jerome Siegel at UCLA studied 3 of the last remaining hunter-gatherer communities still living without artificial light: the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, and the Tsimane of Bolivia. He published his findings in 2015, and they overturned almost everything sleep science thought it knew. These communities did not have a fixed bedtime. People drifted in and out of sleep at different times throughout the night. Some would be awake when others slept. One person would get up to tend the fire. Another would lie awake talking quietly. Children fell asleep against adults and were rearranged without waking. The whole camp moved through sleep like a slow, breathing organism. Siegel called this staggered sleep. And it was not chaos. It was, almost certainly, a survival adaptation. In a group of 30 people sleeping in shifts, there was almost never a moment when every single adult was unconscious at the same time. Someone was always half awake. Someone was always listening. You do not sleep alone because you were never supposed to sleep alone. Now let us talk about fire. Every documented hunter-gatherer society in history slept near fire. This is obvious for warmth. But researchers at the University of Nevada, led by anthropologist Polly Wiesner, discovered something else entirely when they studied Kalahari Bushman evening fire sessions in 2014. Nighttime fire time was not sleeping time. It was story time, ritual time, the time when the group gathered closest, lowered their voices, and spoke about the things that mattered: ancestors, spirits, hunting feats, moral lessons. Wiesner found that the content of daytime conversation and nighttime conversation was completely different. Daytime talk was practical. Nighttime fire talk was almost entirely narrative. What does this have to do with sleep? Everything. Your brain does not switch off from alertness to sleep like a light switch. It transitions through a slow neurological wind-down. Calm, repetitive auditory input, a low voice telling a familiar story, a crackling fire, rhythmic sound, is one of the most efficient ways to guide the brain into that descent. Ancient humans were, without knowing the neuroscience, doing exactly what a modern sleep therapist would prescribe. Dim warm light, no screens, no stimulation, a calm voice telling a story, surrounded by people they trusted. The fire was not just warmth. The fire was their sleep machine. But there is more. And this is where it gets stranger. Sleep researcher Matthew Walker at UC Berkeley has written extensively about how modern humans are almost uniquely bad at tolerating mild discomfort during sleep. A pillow that is 1 degree too warm. A sound that is slightly off. We wake. We scroll. We cannot return. Ancient humans slept on the ground. Hard, uneven, sometimes rocky ground. And they adapted to it. Skeletal analysis from Neolithic burial sites in Europe, particularly from excavations at sites like Çatalhöyük in Turkey, one of the world's oldest known cities dating to 7,500 BCE, shows that our ancestors' bodies were extraordinarily physically dense. Muscle attachments on their bones were deep and pronounced in ways modern humans almost never display. These were bodies that used themselves constantly. Bodies that arrived at night genuinely, biologically exhausted. Not the fake exhaustion of sitting in a chair all day looking at a screen. Real exhaustion. The kind that makes a hard floor feel like a relief. There is a word for this that sleep researchers use: sleep pressure. It is the biological buildup of adenosine, a chemical your brain accumulates every hour you are awake. The more physically demanding your waking hours, the faster adenosine builds, and the harder and faster you fall when you finally lie down. Ancient humans were not better at sleeping because they were calmer. They were better at sleeping because they were more awake during the day. They built sleep pressure the way it was designed to be built, through the body. Now here is the part that researchers almost never talk about. Ancient humans did not expect to sleep in one long, unbroken block. Historian A. Roger Ekirch at Virginia Tech spent 16 years researching sleep patterns before the Industrial Revolution. He published his landmark study in 2001, documenting hundreds of historical references from diaries, court records, and literature across medieval and pre-industrial Europe, describing something called first sleep and second sleep. People would go to sleep at dark, sleep for roughly 4 hours, then wake naturally at around midnight. They would be awake for 1 to 2 hours, sometimes praying, sometimes talking, sometimes having sex, sometimes just lying quietly in a meditative state, and then fall back into a second deep sleep until dawn. This two-phase sleep pattern, called segmented sleep or biphasic sleep, is almost certainly far older than medieval Europe. It appears in hunter-gatherer sleep data too. Siegel's Hadza participants showed regular periods of nighttime wakefulness that were calm, not anxious. They were not lying awake worrying. They were simply awake. Here is what this means for you. And if you wake at 2 a.m. and cannot return to sleep, you are not broken. You may be doing exactly what your brain was built to do. The expectation of 8 unbroken hours is not ancient. It is industrial. It was invented to match the factory shift. And yet there is one more piece. Perhaps the strangest of all. Ancient humans used plants, deliberately, specifically for sleep. Archaeobotanical evidence, the study of plant remains preserved at ancient sites, has found repeated traces of specific sleep-inducing and sedating plants at prehistoric campfire sites and burial locations. At a 77,000-year-old sleeping site in Sibidu Cave in South Africa, one of the oldest known prepared sleeping surfaces ever found, researchers led by archaeologist Lynn Wadley discovered beds made not just of grass, but of specific aromatic plant species with insect repellent and possibly sedating properties. The layers were complex, deliberate, and replaced regularly. Sibidu Cave is not an anomaly. Across the prehistoric record, there are consistent patterns of aromatic and medicinal plant use at sleeping sites. Valerian root, which contains valerianic acid that directly affects GABA receptors in the brain, the same system targeted by modern sleep medications, grows widely across Eurasia and was almost certainly discovered empirically by early humans who noticed that certain plants made them feel heavy and calm. They did not know neuropharmacology, but they paid attention. They observed. They passed knowledge down. Your ancestors were not passively falling asleep in random places. They were crafting sleep, choosing their plants, choosing their position relative to the fire, choosing the right storyteller's voice, embedding themselves in a web of warm bodies and quiet sound. So let us reconstruct a night. It is roughly 40,000 years ago, somewhere in the river valleys of southwestern France, near what will one day be excavated as Chauvet Cave. The temperature is dropping. The fire has burned down from its evening brightness to a steady low orange. Around it, maybe 23 people. A grandmother with gray hair is still talking in a low voice, describing, probably, an ancestor. Her voice is slow, the same cadence she has used every night for 50 years. 3 children have already gone under, curled against each other like a pile of small animals. A man on the edge of the group sits up occasionally, listens to the tree line, then lies back down. Someone adjusts a sleeping infant. The fire crackles. No one is trying to sleep. They are simply letting it happen. The way it always happens. The way it has happened for 300,000 years, every night, in every climate, on every continent, in groups of people who knew, not intellectually, but bodily, that they were safe. That is the ingredient that sleep medicine circles back to over and over again, in every study, in every protocol. Safety. Perceived safety. Your nervous system will not release into sleep if it believes you are in danger. And for your ancestors, the proof of safety was not a locked door. It was the breathing of the people beside you, the low voice across the fire, the smell of the plants they had chosen, the warmth of the coals. When you cannot sleep tonight, your brain is doing something very old. It is scanning for threat. It is waiting for confirmation that it is safe enough to let go. The strangest thing ancient humans did to fall asleep was also the simplest. They surrounded themselves with other humans and let those humans prove, night after night, that the dark was survivable. You wake up when your body is ready. For 300,000 years, that was the whole system. And somewhere underneath everything modernity has built on top of it, your body still knows exactly how it works.